young and the restless spoilers. The whispers around Genoa City had grown louder and darker with each passing day. The murder of Heather had rocked the community, and as always, rumors spread like wildfire. Some pointed fingers at Sharon, but the truth was tangled in a web of deceit that few dared to unravel. Sharon's memory of that fateful night was a blur, a sudden blackout, a glimpse of Heather lying in a pool of blood, and then darkness. When she awoke, the horror was clear, but the truth was obscured. She had been blamed, painted as the murderer, but in her heart she knew there was more to the story. And she suspected that Phyllis was behind the twisted setup. Phyllis had never made a secret of her disdain for both Heather and Sharon. The rivalry between her and Heather had been notorious, filled with bitter words and long-standing resentment. But even for Phyllis, framing someone for murder was a monstrous act. Yet, as more and more details emerged, Sharon couldn't shake the feeling that Phyllis was somehow orchestrating this entire situation, pulling strings to implicate her and escape unscathed. It wasn't just Sharon who was suspicious. Chance, the detective on the case, kept a watchful eye on Phyllis. He was well aware of her reputation in Genoa City. She had managed to avoid the law time and again, slipping through loopholes with a cunning that only she possessed. Phyllis was infamous not only for her cutthroat business tactics, but also for her uncanny ability to make her enemies disappear, both literally and figuratively. Many had speculated over the years that Phyllis might have blood on her hands, and the whispers weren't without basis. Chance's instincts were sharp, but he needed proof. Despite his hunches, he couldn't pin Heather's murder on Phyllis without concrete evidence. Phyllis was slippery, a master of manipulation who knew how to evade suspicion with calculated precision. Her seemingly flawless alibis, her network of allies, and her own brand of charm had allowed her to stay above the law time and again. Chance knew he couldn't afford a misstep. If he was going to bring Phyllis to justice, he needed undeniable proof, and he knew that wouldn't come easy. Meanwhile, Sharon was determined to clear her name and bring the truth to light. She couldn't bear the thought of living under the shadow of a crime she didn't commit, her life marred by a murder that had nothing to do with her. Despite her fears and the holes in her memory, Sharon began piecing together the events of that night, scrutinizing every detail, every conversation, and every possible clue that might lead her to the real killer. She sought help from her closest allies, digging into Heather's recent activities, trying to uncover any link that might point back to Phyllis. The more she searched, the more she realized that Heather had posed a threat to Phyllis in ways she hadn't known before. Heather had stumbled upon sensitive information, details that could have destroyed Phyllis's reputation and career. It became clear that Phyllis had a motive, one powerful enough to push her to extremes. As Sharon's investigation continued, she found herself crossing paths with Chance. While he was initially skeptical of her motives, Sharon's passion and determination convinced him that she was genuinely innocent. Together, they began to dig deeper into Phyllis's past, unearthing old records, testimonies, and any hint of foul play that might connect her to Heather's death. But Phyllis was no ordinary adversary. She had an uncanny ability to stay one step ahead, covering her tracks with meticulous care. Each lead Chance and Sharon found seemed to slip through their fingers, as if Phyllis anticipated their every move. Sharon grew more frustrated, haunted by the knowledge that Phyllis was playing a game of life and death, with her freedom as the prize. Still, Sharon refused to give up. The stakes were too high, and the truth was her only way out. She knew Phyllis was watching her every move, waiting for her to stumble, to fail, to lose hope. But Sharon wasn't about to let Phyllis win. She pushed forward, determined to expose the woman who had framed her. As Sharon and Chance got closer to the truth, they found themselves ensnared in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Phyllis had allies of her own, people willing to lie and cover for her, to shift the blame back onto Sharon. But the evidence was mounting, and with every new piece of information, Chance grew more confident that they were closing in on Phyllis. Then came the breakthrough they had been waiting for. A security camera had caught a brief, grainy glimpse of someone near Heather's house the night of her death. A figure with a distinct build and gait that matched Phyllis's. It was enough to push Chance to take action. but he knew he needed more before he could bring Phyllis down. In a final confrontation, Sharon and Chance confronted Phyllis, laying out the evidence they had gathered, each piece a small yet powerful blow to Phyllis's carefully constructed alibi. Phyllis, sensing the walls closing in, tried to maintain her composure, but her confidence wavered under their scrutiny. "Sharon, you're making a mistake," Phyllis sneered, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You don't know what you're getting into." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm getting into," Sharon replied, her voice steady and filled with resolve. "And I'm not stopping until the truth comes out." Phyllis's smirk faltered as Chance took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "The law is finally catching up with you, Phyllis. You may have escaped before, but this time we're bringing you down." As the tension in the room grew, Phyllis's mask of innocence slipped, her eyes flashing with a dangerous glint. She knew she was cornered, but she wasn't about to go down without a fight. She'd claw her way out, as she always had, but this time Sharon and Chance were ready, prepared to ensure justice was served. The journey was far from over, but Sharon had taken the first step towards proving her innocence. The path ahead would be treacherous, filled with deceit and danger, but she had allies, determination, and a cause worth fighting for. As for Phyllis, her days of manipulation and murder were numbered. In Genoa City, secrets had a way of surfacing, and sooner or later, even the most cunning of criminals would pay the price for their actions.